Hey there, guys. Welcome to another episode of After the Bell Rings. And I've got a very exciting guest which has joined us today. I'm not going to mention who it is just yet. I want to recap last week. So last week we had Artie on the show. It was Kevin on the show. And Kevin looked at some Steiner Waldorf approaches, alternative approaches into learning, teaching and learning, some different perspectives, which were really interesting on teaching and learning, things like, reading ages happening around 7 years old. So if you're interested in that, that's also available on our website. That was last week's webinar. But this week, pleasure to have you here. I'm joined by John Tait, who is a school leader and an author who's written 4 books, which are designed on improving the quality of teaching and learning. Absolute pleasure to have you here with us today, John. Would you like to say a little bit more?
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. And it's great to be here speaking to you all tonight. I'm a current school leader and a deputy CEO of a multi-academy trust in the UK. I've been teaching now for around about 20 years. And as Nathan said, I've written 4 books on education, from classroom pedagogy to pastoral leadership to senior leadership, and then also the research and the science of learning that underpins teaching. So I've done lots of things like that. But also, and I know we're going to talk about this anyway, Nathan, but I'll give you a segue into it. I'm also really importantly a parent. And I think that's that's really a flavour of what we're going to talk about tonight. And I then feel I'm in a very privileged position to be able to see education through not only my teacher and school leader lenses, but also through the eyes of a parent. And I think that's really important to have that empathy of what happens at home and what happens after the bell rings, as well as what happens, in school as well.
I agree with you there, John. And I'm really looking forward to plucking your brains today, because your experience and everything you've done for the last several years is about improving the quality of teaching and learning. And we've got a lot of parents out there that are viewing, watching, and they want ways to improve the teaching and learning at home, the ways that they can support, ways that they can be effective and support their son or daughter, or niece or nephew, or friend or relative, or whoever it is. They want to support that child at home. And you're an expert at improving teaching and learning. So I'm definitely going to pluck your brains about how we can, this whole episode is just going to be about how we can organize at home, how we can prepare at home, how parents can encourage and support. And we're just going to really get into some of the details in what parents can do, tangible things as well. I don't want to hear anything about, go and buy the latest MacBook Air and you can start. No. Just tangible things where parents can implement them at home and really make an impact with their child. So that is actually going to be like, my first question is going to be, where would you start as a parent? Obviously you're a parent. What tips, just as an overview, where would you start with supporting the home learning?
I think that there's lots of things to do, Nathan, and I think it's really nice that we'll get into the kind of real nitty gritty and the tangible things, because like you say, it's not about, go and do this or spend money on this, or there's lots and lots of things. And I work with so many parents in our schools and have worked with them in the last 20 years, that the vast majority of parents really, really want to help at home. The problem is they don't know how to help. And actually that they sometimes feel that because they don't know the content, so they might not know Shakespeare or physics, and they feel and they can't help with that because they don't know the content. Well, actually, what I'm here to tell people tonight is, you don't need to know the content. You just need to know lots of the things that I'm going to talk about now, lots of different strategies, different ways you can organize the home environment so you can make a difference. So we'll go through them kind of one by one, and I'll talk about what to do, how to do it very quickly, and what that kind of look like. And then, like I say, if you've got any questions you want to fire back at me, then fine, we'll unpack it a bit more. So the first thing is to make sure your son or daughter has a quiet space to study or to work in. And that might be the bedroom, it might be a dining room, it might be a room somewhere in the house, or it might even be a corner of a room. But the key word there is a quiet space. Somewhere where actually they can focus, because one thing that we're doing a lot at the moment is we're telling students and telling teachers actually to make sure that lessons have designated times of silent focus within the lesson, because we know as adults that to be able to really concentrate deeply and really focus on something, we generally need silence. We need to really, really concentrate. If you've got the television on, or you've got people walking through, or people are cooking and the oven's on and the microwave's binging, there's all these things happening. You're constantly distracted. So there needs to be a real quiet space. Now, like I said, that might be a bedroom, it could be another room, it could be anywhere in the house, but ultimately find a quiet space for your son or daughter to be able to work at, wherever that is, and that will have kind of a massive impact. So that's the first thing. Yeah. Secondly, linked to that as well is actually lots of research says that you need to make sure that it's not a place of relaxation as well, because going back to the first point, it might be, oh great, the bedroom is the quiet space, and then your son or daughter studies or works or revises on their bed. And what the research says is, psychologically in our mind, if we are sat on an area that our mind and our body knows or connects to a relaxation, it's very, very difficult to then get our mind consciously into a really focused work ethic type of zone, because our body associates that place with relaxation. So the bed is not a great place, even though it might be in the bedroom and it might be quiet. Actually, it's where else in the bedroom. If the quiet space is the bedroom, ideally a desk, somewhere that actually is designated as a study space. And even the research even says, as kind of silly as this might sound, putting a piece of paper on the wall above the desk that says study space and actually designating that space as a study space, it then again psychologically demonstrates that I'm here to work and I'm not here to then play on my console or look at my social media. So things like that are really, really interesting and don't cost any money.
I can relate to that one. We've been working from home, and something new that I've started to do recently. Used to work at secondary school, and I was always in the secondary school environment. Obviously, it's also really busy and it's fast paced, and you kind of get that momentum to keep going and keep going hard. But at home, it's very different, isn't it? You kind of got to have that self-discipline. So I can relate to that point. And as an adult as well, I'm someone with a certain level of maturity and self-discipline and routine. So I can only imagine how challenging it is for a child that has to work at home, and they're in this environment where the kitchen's the place where they have dinner, the bedroom's the place where they play Xbox. So I can only imagine how hard it is to switch off. Really interesting about the piece of paper thing though, just stick up saying workstation. Yeah,
it is, and it's a psychological trick, isn't it, that actually it gets you into that kind of, I'm here to do this and I'm not here to do anything else. And again, there's that's not just me saying that might be a good idea. There's research that actually suggests that is a really good way to do it. And as silly as that sounds, it just gets the mind into that kind of mode that I'm here to do this and I'm not here to do anything else. So yeah, that's great. And then again, linking them with all of these linked together, which is quite nice for parents, hopefully listening and watching, is that whatever that space is, it really needs to be a flat space. So if we're talking about a desk in the bedroom or a desk somewhere, now hopefully most desks have a flat space anyway. The idea of a desk is it's hopefully going to have a flat surface. I wouldn't advise anyone to buy a desk that doesn't have a flat surface. However, my tip is here, have a flat surface to work on. Again, it shouldn't be on your knee, because if you think, if any of us watching here, we're going to do something really, really important, like fill in a job application, or even like a passport application, or something that you really kind of want to get right, I don't think you'd want to do that on your knee. Actually, it's about having a desk that's uncluttered, because as well, not just the flat surface, but the uncluttered part is really interesting, because if you work in an environment that is messy, cluttered, things everywhere, it starts to then clutter your own thought processes and your own mindset. So actually having a clear desk with nothing else on it, making sure you tidy away at the end, like a chef does in a restaurant, in the kitchen, tidy it all down, have it neat, so there's nothing on that desk apart from you can spread your laptop, your book, your work, your pens out, and you can have a real clarity of thought. So that's really, really important, to have that flat desk and to have it clean, uncluttered, and ready to work at. So again, if we can help that by parents actually helping to tidy away, or not necessarily tidying away yourself, but getting your son or daughter to tidy away and make sure that is an uncluttered space, that also has a big difference in there. So that's really important as well. So moving on. Sorry, go on.
I've got one question on the desk part, because obviously desks, like, what if I can't afford a desk? What do I do then? What would you recommend?
Lots of people kind of say that, and they say, I haven't got a desk, or I haven't got space for a desk sometimes. It comes up. And actually, well, is there a dining table? Because actually we might say that, well, the dining room isn't or the kitchen table isn't quiet, but it might be quiet at certain times of the day though. Yeah. It might not be quiet at 5 o'clock, but it might be quiet at 7 o'clock. So actually it's then about how you structure and plan with your child when that space is available and when it's their space. Not when it's the family space, but when it can be given over to their space. And actually, by structuring those things, so even though, you know, there's not a desk upstairs, well, actually the dining room table can be yours from 8 till 9, or from 7 till 8, or even in the morning, whenever, on a weekend. So there's lots of ways to get around it. And I think that just, again, having that specific space where at this point I am going to be in work mode, like you said, working from home, having somewhere specific to do that is really, really helpful. So yeah, absolutely. Moving on then, the next part of that, which links to it nicely, is making sure it's well lit. Now, depending where your desk or where your study place is, you might find that it's right under a light, right under a window, that kind of stuff. But we can always add extra lights to it. So we can add, you know, like a desk light that sits, plugs in, and then, you know, sits over the top of our work. Because what we don't want to be doing, and it sounds obvious, but lots of students end up doing this, is straining their eyes in poorly lit conditions, which therefore makes it harder for them straight away to concentrate. It makes them fatigued and tired earlier because you're straining your eyes. So straight away, you're making it harder for yourself to study. Now, why would we want to do that? Let's make sure it's the right conditions. However, sometimes it can be too light. And what I mean by that is, if you're sat in front of a window and you've moved your desk right in front of the window, and the light is coming straight through the window at you at certain times of the day when the sun's shining in, that can then be too bright. So it's about thinking about how you can position your desk. If you are in the privileged position to move your desk to a certain place in the room, ideally what you want is the light coming from behind you, shining through onto your workspace. So you're not looking into the sun, but your room is well lit from the light. And also it stops you sat in front of the window, looking out of the window and being distracted when people are walking past and constantly being, you know, off task because somebody walks past or a car goes past and you go, oh, what's that? What's that? And it breaks that cycle of focus. So don't look out the window. Have the window kind of shining on you if you can. If you haven't got that luxury, make sure you've got a well-lit room. Maybe you need to change the bulb to make it a brighter bulb, or have a desk lamp. Lots of ways we can do that, but, you know, let's not strain our eyes, because it makes it, you know, more difficult for us as we go along. Yeah. And then the last couple of things, like no distractions. So we all know from our mobile phones that it's constantly, you know, pinging with kind of messages or notifications, updates, you name it, it's coming. So what we need to do is make sure that when we have a period of study, and that might only be 20 minutes at a time, and there's lots of research that talks about not doing too long, having kind of 20-25 minutes and then a 5-minute break, and that's quite nice. So in that time, remove your phone from your room. Don't just turn it face down. Yeah. Because actually, we know that how many times do we put our hands in our pockets and just go, I'm just going to check in case someone's messaged me. You haven't felt a vibration, but there's a natural pull to want to check that phone all the time. So if you're sat as a child and your phone is near you within arm's reach, I guarantee that even if it hasn't pinged, you will check that phone to just check in case you've had a really urgent message. So parents, this is up to you now. Remove the phone from the room for that 20 minutes. Let your son or daughter really concentrate for that 20-25 minutes. In that 5-minute break, give them their phone. Let them check it. Let them go to the toilet. Let them go and get a drink. But they don't need it in that. And if they say, oh, I need it for my calculator. No, you don't. There's one on the laptop. Oh, I need it for this. No, you don't. There's whatever they've got on there, educationally, they'll probably be able to have on their device that they're working from. Or, you know, or you can, okay, so it's fine. I'll get you a calculator. Or probably, you know, you don't need your phone, you know, because it just creates the distractions that we don't need. So have that away, move it out of the way, and really, really kind of focus on that.
The phone's a big one. I worked at an alternative provision that I worked at, and an inclusion unit that I worked at secondary school. Both had the rule of children hand their mobile phones in the morning, and they get their mobile phones on break times and lunch breaks, and they hand them back in during the lesson time. And at both in other parts of the UK as well, and both massive success. By doing that, the children were more focused. They were unable to receive messages that were happening in other parts of the school as well, you know, like school gossip. And they were just so in tune with everything that was happening in that building and in those rooms. And then they kind of accessed that mobile phone, the TikTok world and the Snapchat world, after the learning. And it was really, really effective. So I'm a big one on getting
definitely, and especially if our children are at home within arm's reach of the phone, when there aren't any rules about it, they are definitely going to be checking it. Let's not be naive about it and think, oh no, I'll leave them their phone, they won't check it. They will, and they are, and it's disrupting their thoughts. Even if it isn't pinging, they will be checking it anyway. So let's just remove that, take it out, have some ground rules and some house rules, and say this is the way it is. Next, then, it's actually just simple things that we would do as adults, making sure you've got your area prepared before you start. So the last thing you want to do is sit down, start focusing on something, and then go, oh, I'm going to get up and get a drink, or oh, I haven't got my ruler, or I need my calculator, because then you have to get up. It breaks your train of thought. It breaks your focus, and you don't need to. Before you sit down, what do I need? Right, I need my colored pens. I need my calculator. I need my revision guide. I need some plain paper. I need a drink. I need some tissues. I need whatever it is. Get it ready and have it all within hand. So when you sit down for that period of time, everything is there. You do not need to get up at all. And again, really simple thing, real basics, but something that lots of people forget about. And then getting up it's sometimes an excuse as well. Oh, why have you come downstairs? Oh, I needed a drink. No. Like, So as a parent, let's ask those questions to start. Right. Do you want a drink? Do you want a biscuit or a snack? What do you need? Be the person that helps prepare your child, because your child might not be, depending how old they are, they might not be organized or mature enough to have those personal conversations with themselves about what do I need? Where is it? You should do that when you take your phone off them. Right. What do you need so you don't have to get up? And even if it means you going downstairs and getting them a drink, that's parenting. Do you know what I mean? Do it so they can sit there and revise or study for 30 minutes or 25 minutes. So stuff like that, really easy. And then the last one, which is interesting, which it always, it differs opinion on people, is music. Because lots of young people tell me constantly that they prefer or they study better listening to music.
Yeah.
Now, Now, the research on this, which is interesting, I know I kind of go back to the research quite a bit, but it's a great starting point, is that if we listen to music that we recognize with lyrics, you'll do it, we'll do it in the car, you'll do it in the shower, you'll start humming along or singing along to the lyrics because you know what's coming next, okay? Now, the reason we know what's coming next is because our brain is thinking about that. Therefore, if we're doing that, we are multitasking, right? We have to be. So if we're multitasking, there is at least some part of my brain that's not focusing on what I should be doing. And it's focusing on what the music is, what the beat is, when it starts, when it stops, what the lyrics are, and what's coming next. Now, I want to be giving 100% of my focus to what I'm doing, not 80%, because 20% is on the music, even though I say, oh, no, it's not. Well, if it's not, and you're not listening to it, then you don't need it. If you're listening to it, then something is consciously, focused on it. So that's the first thing, that actually generally it's distracting and not helping. What students do is they say, I like to. Oh yeah, of course you like to, because it's a comfort zone thing. But actually it's about focus. And sometimes students don't like silence because, as you mentioned before, about TikTok, YouTube, things like that, their world at the moment is filled with short, sharp chunks of media. And they sometimes find it hard to just have periods of silence. But unfortunately, exams and learning take place sometimes in silence. So we need to get them used to it. Rather than I always need my world filled with some kind of media, we need to wean them off that, because that's not how it works. And it's also not how it works in the real world in terms of work. You're not going to be able to have headphones in for most jobs, and listening to music all the time. But what I will say on the flip side of that is, if you're in a noisy environment, so let's imagine you are in the kitchen and that's the only place to study and it's the hub of the house, having some music on might be the perfect way to drown out all the random distractions and have a constant that's going on all the time. So at least you're in a constant kind of noise, so you can really switch into what you're doing, rather than somebody shouting and it grabs your attention, or the microwave going, or the phone, all those distractions that constantly take you off, with some music. And that sometimes happens in like a kind of a study center in a library or something, where you've got lots of people talking. Actually, having some music on then allows you to just be in one place, and that sometimes helps. But I certainly wouldn't say listen to music if you don't need to, because actually it's just a distraction. So they are my kind of all my tips pulled together, really.
They're amazing, and I'm just want to got a couple of questions on the music one. And first of all, thank you for those tips, because they're tangible. They're things that we can do, parents can do, aunties, uncles, etc. We can implement these immediately. If you've not got a flat desk, use a tray. We can implement these things straight away, which I love. One question on the music though, just out of curiosity, is it just music with lyrics, or what about instrumental music? And like, a lot of my old students at school, they love listening to lo-fi whilst they're working, and I used to get good results. They used to seem like they're engaging. Obviously, I wasn't inside their brain, so I don't.
I think the most dangerous stuff is with lyrics, and music with lyrics. Again, music with lyrics that you recognise, because you start to then hum along. You know the next words. So there has to be some part of your brain focused on that. Like, that's not magic. Your brain is focusing in on what's happening next, and you're already preempting what's happening. Instrumental music, without lyrics, is far better. And sometimes it comes out of personal choice. Some people say that actually I need it. I'm not sure if I've seen any research to suggest that people need it. I think people like it, but that's very different to needing it, And my issue, I suppose, is that if you say from day one, I need music to concentrate, and you always, always, always concentrate with music, when you're put into a situation like an exam in an exam hall with no music, suddenly you have never practiced in the same conditions in which you're going to perform. And if you think about the world of sport, we try to talk about kind of making sure our performers practice in as lifelike scenarios as performance and game, because if you never do it in that kind of level, then you're going to feel very strange when you come to perform. And an exam is ultimately a performance. So if suddenly that's very strange and I don't like it, I need music, well, you've almost set yourself up to fail, haven't you? So I would just err on the side of caution there and say, do you actually need it, or is it just something you like? And you also don't really know how much of your brain is actually then engaging in the music. And that, I suppose, is the thing where, how do you know if is it 5%, 10%, 20% of your brain power that's listening to the music? And if you say to me, I'm not listening to it, well, why do you need it anyway? It's an interesting conversation that ultimately might come down to individual preference. However, speaking to parents now, which is what we're doing tonight, parents need to have the power to say, hang on a second, I know that's not right, because just making sure people are empowered with the information so they can make the right decisions.
And I also like the lighting point as well, which is something that we don't always think of. A lot of people like these smart bulbs now, where you can control the brightness and they can dim it down and they can make it blue and all these weird colors and stuff like that. So you're just saying, no, just keep it bright white so you can see, no eye strain. You're gonna less fatigued, makes loads of sense. And I love those points there. So that's for any parents that are watching and you're supporting your child at home with revision, home learning, whatever it is, school closures, you're off sick, or you just want additional learning time, in the evenings, and you just want to prepare your children for exams. Some great points there from John. Quiet space, flat desk, have the appropriate lighting, minimize the distractions, have a place that is designated for learning, designated for this kind of learning hour or two that you may have with your child. And then they kind of pick up a routine, and I suppose there's a level of conditioning in that as well, isn't there? So, eventually you start going to that space and you start behaving differently because you're like, hey, this is where I learn. Kind of like if we go to a workplace, right? You go, you've been working somewhere for years, you go there, things happen in your brain that make you behave differently, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting, at this moment in time, my son, who's 17, we're looking around universities with him. And we went to a university a few weeks ago and we were given a tour of the library. And the library was an amazing learning space, on 3 or 4 floors, amazing, really modern space. And I spoke to the tour guide, who was a current student at the university. And he said, I'm living on campus, I've got a room, I've got a nice desk in my room, etc., etc. So I then said, right, so why do you come to the library? Because he said, I come to the library all the time at work. I said, well, why do you come to the library then If you're telling me you've got an individual room at home, you've got a desk in your room, you've got a laptop, why come out to the library to work? And he said exactly that, Nathan. He said, when I'm here, I feel like I'm focused because I'm here for a purpose. When I'm at home in his halls of residence, in his university accommodation, I've got other things I could be doing. I could be on my phone, I could be on my console, I could be looking out the window, I can be chatting to someone. He said, in the library, I'm here to do something specific. And there's no point in me being here if I'm not going to do that. So actually it kind of hammers home your point there that being in a certain area conditions you to act in a certain way, especially if it becomes a habit. You know, we build that habit over time, then it makes it really easy for our bodies and our minds to be able to switch into that kind of that work zone, education zone immediately.
Yeah, I used to do the same, to be honest. Whilst I was at uni, I was one of the people that used to utilize the library. It worked for me. The library worked for me. And I know some of my friends used to work at home in their shared accommodations, and that worked for them. But I don't know what it was. When I was in the library, I'd just excel and I'd get loads done. And I think as well, the part of my mind was, I want to get home. You know, that would motivate me a little bit as well, you know, to kind of reach that goal that I've set in my mind, whether it's 5,000 words or whatever it is that I'm trying to do. I'd get that done before going home. So I got another question as well that I like to ask all the guests that come on this show, because you guys all work in education and you have done for so many years, and you as a leader in education, and you know a lot about education. And I feel like there are some secrets, not secrets, like the information is open to everyone. But what I mean by secrets, it's like it's common sense for teachers and educators and people that work in schools and primary schools, etc. But for parents, it's not so much. So I want to ask you, because obviously your dad as well. So is there anything that you've picked up from your journey of being an educator that you're like, do you know what, that thing was really useful, and it was that useful, I'm going to take it home and use it on my own children, that method or that strategy or whatever it is?
Yeah, definitely. And what I'm about to say isn't scientific. It's not highly secret. It's literally so easy and common sense, yet we find that many people don't do it. And it's simply taking an interest, you know, actually sitting down. If you've got a dining room table, or if you have tea together or dinner together, or even if you're going to see your son or daughter in their bedroom, actually ask and get involved in, what have you done today? You know, what have you learned today? You know, when's this handed in for? Tell me what you're doing. Actually get them to actually talk about their learning, and you know, just take a real interest and be all over it. You know, from a point of view of, be the person that be the nagging parent, be the person that knows when all those deadlines are in this week. Not kind of, oh, well, you didn't tell me you had homework. You need to know what they're doing, when they're doing it, when it needs being for, and you need to know how they're doing it. Either, you know, when you know, just be all over it. Take an interest, be all over it. And then also, you know, a little bit more, I suppose, educationally scientific is do a lot of what we call checking for understanding. So ask questions about their understanding. And a really easy tip here, which I can give parents now, is if you're sat, like as a family, we sit around our dining room table every night, and we open up with a question of kind of, you know, how's your day been? And both of our children will talk about what they've done in their lessons, what they're doing, etc. Lots of times, and I have to stop myself saying this because I've been conditioned into saying this wrongly, and I'm now trying to retrain my kind of brain, is that I would say to you, so let's imagine you and my son, and I would say, what have you done today? That would be the question I would ask. What have you done? The word done. And you would go, oh, well, like I did, you know, we did maths, then it was English. So, and I don't really find anything out. And I haven't made your brain think and recall the information. If I change one word in that question, I say, Nathan, what did you learn today? Now, you can't just say, we did maths.
Yeah.
Say, no. What did you learn? So your brain then starts recalling what you did in your maths lesson. You say, oh, actually, we did trigonometry today, and I found out about this and this. Oh, okay. Now that opens up a whole different conversation rather than what did you do today? It's a very low order question. What did you do? Well, I did this. I played football. I ate lunch. I got the bus home. No, what did you learn? And the science behind that is that every time we recall information and we bring it back to the forefront of our memory, it strengthens the memory of that information. So the more times I can ask those questions, and I can not only ask a question that recalls it, but I can also check your understanding at the same time, how strong do you know this, and how confident are you? So those little questions about, tell me what you know, what have you learned today? And again, if a parent has then taken their phone off them for 15, 20 minutes, the student, your son or daughter has done some study for that time, and you go back up to the bedroom and give them their phone back. Before you give them the phone back, right, what have you learned in the last 20 minutes? Tell me 5 things. So again, you don't need to know Shakespeare, you don't need to know physics. Tell me 5 things, or 3 things, 10 things, whatever it is that you've learned in the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and get them to recall that and show their understanding. And you'll know as a parent whether they are kind of and they're bluffing, or whether they can talk with confidence and kind of gravity about what they know. And you can check that. You can grab their revision book and you can check what they're saying is right. If you think that you're getting blagged, you can do that. So things like that, just take an interest, talk to your son or daughter about what they're doing, check in for understanding questions, and ask what they've learned rather than just what they've done. So little tweaks to questions can make a big difference in the answer and the thought process behind the eyes.
Yeah, that's questioning. And I think as an educator, that's something that will come second nature to you. As a teacher, we practice questioning all the time. And, there's a lot of practice and training that's done into this is how you question effectively. And that's something that we need to practice as everyone, not just parents and teachers, just stay on top of it, because the question changes everything. One word in that question literally changed. It changed everything.
It becomes a different question, doesn't it? It becomes a totally different question.
It's really, really interesting. And what I also like about that answer, John, the reason why I like asking this question is because obviously we have this show on every week, and what we're starting to realize as well, we're getting common trends with like most frequent response from teachers and stuff. And that's one thing that I am starting to hear is question your child about what they did at school. What did they learn? Where you've kind of refined that is ask, what did you learn? Not what did you do? And I love that. So parents that are watching it, they'll start realizing, oh, this keeps getting said frequently. It must be true. All these different educators saying it from left, right, center. There must be a bit of truth in it. So I like that. Just take an interest. Do you find it easier taking an interest though, because you're interested in academics and academia? Like, I'm just thinking, like, let's say, not to stereotype, but I don't know, someone that's a parent that's a bit more hands-on, never succeeded at school. Maybe they are, they do some sort of building work or something like that. And because I think physics and Macbeth and all this stuff can be quite intimidating if you're not an academic person.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think that's why it's really important to be interested. But also, like I said right at the start, it's not, you don't necessarily need to know the content. You just need to show an interest. Yeah, you don't need to know it, but actually just if I bumped into you in the street and I just asked a few surface questions, how are you doing? Everything all right? Yeah, it's the kind of just standard questions. But if I actually start to say, wow, how did that go? How's the family? And I remember, if I ask questions that I know things about you, straight away you're feeling just more engaged with me, because actually you know that I'm taking a genuine interest. And if you know I'm taking a genuine interest, then you're more likely to want to, like me, impress me. And if we're talking about from a parent point of view now, like those things are really important. So I think it's just taking a genuine interest, not having to understand the content, but understand all the things I talked about, which is the environment. Just get the environment right, ask the right type of questions. Nothing about, all those questions I asked about, what did you learn today? Doesn't matter what subject it is. I don't, it could be a rocket scientist. It doesn't bother me. What have you learned today in your rocket science class? Just talk to me. And then I go, wow, really? How does that work? And then they go, well, actually, Dad, it works like this. Really? How do you know that? Well, actually, and then straight away, I'm getting them to demonstrate that they understand it, because I'm just asking those little further questions. How do you know that? Is that really right? Where's that from? How does that really work? How do you? And all I'm doing is just getting them to really justify and explain their answer, rather than just, well, because Sir told me. Well, no, we're getting under the skin of the answer, and we're getting to the nitty gritty of, they really know this, and it might be that they go, I don't know, Sir told me, and you say, well, why don't you go and find out then, because that sounds really interesting. And again, the way you use, and I know you've talked about this before in other podcasts, the language and your kind of tone of voice, you can hear, I could hear it in my own voice there. I could hear my parent voice going, oh, wow, that's really interesting. So how does it work? Rather than just, okay, all right. Like there's a big difference. and you show that enthusiasm, you show you're interested, and you'll get it back in bucket loads, and then what you hope to get when you start to generate the habit of this, you hope to get your kids sitting and then wanting to tell you before you've even asked the question. Guess what we did today? Guess what I learned today?
Yeah.
What? Tell me. Rather than
habit, right? That
yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Yeah. So if we can get to that point, and they want to tell you, they want to impress you, and they learn something at school, and they can't wait to get home to tell you what they've learned. Bingo. That's the kind of the holy grail, isn't it, of kind of getting to that point.
And what I love about that is, well, it takes 5 minutes, doesn't it? It takes 5 minutes from your day. I'm conscious of time. We've got like 5-6 minutes left, but I want to talk about technology as well, because obviously technology is a big influencer in life, not just education and learning, but it's also a big influence on education and learning. A lot of, it's changed massively since I was at school, definitely. And I want to ask your opinion on it, and how do you've used technology in the classroom, you probably use it at home to aid learning. So overall, or just give us a quick overview. Obviously, we could speak for 3 hours on technology and learning, but we're going to, 5-minute snapshot. What do you think it benefits learning, or is it something that we should go old school and just stick to pen and paper and get rid of the laptops and the applications and all these fancy toys, just pen and paper? Or what do you think on that?
Okay, I've got really kind of strong views on this, and I think that from my point of view is that it can really help learning.
Okay.
Can. That's the key word in that sense. Can. Unfortunately, far too many teachers, schools, organizations haven't really broken through the ceiling of that, because all they've done is they've replaced pen and paper with an iPad or with a Chromebook, let's say, okay? And what happens is that the students don't do any different thinking. Now, if I was going to ask you to write an essay or to answer a task, and you had to do it on pen and paper, and then I gave you the iPad, it doesn't make any difference. The technology then doesn't suddenly make you any better. All you then do is you do the same thinking, but you do it on an iPad. So it's about how we unlock the potential of what the iPad or what the Chromebook or what the laptop can do. Unfortunately, people don't think that, and they think, oh, let's use technology because it's shiny. And that's kind of the general kind of emphasis that, oh, we'll use it, but it's not used properly. If we can start to use it properly and think about the different ways that we can collaborate, and we can use, shared documents together, and we can do group work, and we can add comments, and we can do all these different types of great things, then brilliant. But if we just use it to replicate pen and paper, the students don't have any different thinking. So why should we think that the technology is going to make any difference? Because the thinking upstairs is exactly the same. Worst case scenario, what happens is that students stop writing because they're doing dragging and dropping, or they're typing, and they go into an exam at the end of it and have to write for 2 hours and go, oh, my wrist's hurting, I've forgotten almost how to write. So it can have some negative impact on that. So it's about how we use it properly, and not just putting an iPad in front of someone and saying, well, the technology is going to make the difference. If the thinking is no different and the task doesn't lead to any different thought processes or a better output, then there's no difference at all. So it's all about how we think about using the technology, rather than just, I'm going to use technology because it's shiny. Yeah.
So it's all about getting that. It should meet the need, really, shouldn't it? It should meet the need of the learner and able to, motivate the learner, help the learner excel. So no, I agree with that. And that's a different way of thinking about it as well. I've not heard that response before. It just, doing it on an iPad, an essay on an iPad, is not going to change the way they think. Going to just replicate exactly the same. Except
and I think it's kind of, I suppose, what I would say to parents or to teachers and listening is that if you're going to use technology, you need to think, well, what's the difference? What difference is it going to create in their thinking on the output? If you can't think of any, stick to pen and paper, because there'll always be a problem with technology at some point down the line. Battery goes, or I can't get logged into this, or it's kicked me out of this. Actually, you don't need all that grief. If you're not going to do anything different, just stick to pen and paper. But if you're going to be starting to use the different kind of, the different functionality in there, and it's going to open up lots more doors, then great. But it's about thinking about what's this going to kind of use. And I think for parents thinking, looking at this, well, you sometimes don't need, laptops and devices, a set of notes or a guide and some pen and paper and some flashcards and some highlighters. That is a lot of times what you need. You don't need to go out and spend lots of money on other things, because if it's about kind of memorizing information, then that will do it. Sometimes technology just leads to you kind of being on a device and then the notifications start pinging in and there's an email coming. Again, it's just a distraction you don't need. So think about, why do I need to use it? And if I don't need to use it for any different, then just don't use it. As simple as that.
It's been so insightful chatting with you, John. And I'm looking forward to having you on in the future as well. So we're going to have you on through many more webinars, and the next two are going to be related to this, what we've discussed today. So today was all about organizing, preparing, and just optimizing your learning space at home, and, you know, techniques and strategies that you can use at home, tangible, you can do immediately to support your child at home. And, you know, in January, we're going to be looking at study skills with John. So John's going to talk about, he's going to hone in a bit more detail and start talking about ways you can, you know, what methods and strategies can we use to help our children study. So we've looked at more the environment today, and we're going to look at, you know, more study skills in January. And we're also going to look at optimizing the body, which I'm looking forward to that, because you've got a sports fitness background as well, right, John? So
that's right. I used to coach American football for Great Britain. I used to be a PE teacher as well. So yeah, thinking about, you know, not wanting to give too much away before the webinar, but thinking about as a parent, thinking about our child's bodies and their minds like an athlete does before performance. You know, they wouldn't, you know, athletes and sports people wouldn't stay up late the night before a performance. They'd make sure they eat right, all those type of things. Actually, let's get our body and our mind in the optimum kind of condition so we can learn and we can perform. So yeah, we'll talk a lot about that, and I'm really looking forward to both those webinars and coming back on to do that in the near future.
Yeah, I can't wait. Absolute pleasure to have you on, John. And I hope all of the viewers have enjoyed, all of the parents, carers, whoever you are out there have enjoyed it and found this useful. Remember, you don't just have to be a parent. You could be an older sibling. You could be an uncle. This is just anyone with a linked responsibility to a child that needs to learn, which is most people. So don't feel, you know, if you're a parent, you can't access this and this is no use to you. We've got many videos on Guide Plus as well. If you want to access any videos to help you support with the home learning and find out more and go through steps on that. Absolute pleasure to have you on, John. And I look forward to seeing you next time. And you guys, see you on Thursday. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.